Hey guys, my name is David Breer and welcome to FinTech Insider On Air, episode 35 now. Last week, Will White talked to the FCA's Samantha Emery. Where was I last week? I missed that one, didn't I? Where was I, Pet?
You were in Venice?
Yeah,
Italy. With the gelato.
Was that where I was? Yeah,
I mean, so.
I was out. Can't remember where I were. It was clearly a busy week. Samantha Emery talking about everything that they've been doing with the cross-sector sandbox and the tech sprint events that they've been having. Really, really good episode. If you want to head over and check that out, go to the 11FS's Periscope or YouTube channel now. This week, we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about the LinkedIn's top 25 startup list that came out just today. And along me, we have the rather wonderful Mrs. now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it would be sort of Miss Megan Caywood, but Mrs. Megan Cooper.
Exactly. Yeah. The dual name. Yeah, Megan Caywood kind of stuck as my professional name, but Megan Cooper is my actual married name.
I love that. You've got like a stage name and like in the real world.
Yeah, it's really nice for confusing people. So yeah, works out well.
And obviously now you're MD over at Barclays. How's things with the new role?
Yeah, no, it's excellent. So I've been there, 9 months now.
Wow.
Just joined in January. So. On the one hand, it feels like just yesterday I was at Starling, but yet it already feels like I've been at Barclays for a long time. But no, I think I joined really at the right time when we see the changes coming in from fintech, now going into banking. It's just such a really cool inflection point to be part of. So yeah, really enjoying it so far.
Very cool. Glad you are. All right. Well, what we're going to do, before we maybe get into the LinkedIn top 25 list, a few facts about some of the startups that are actually out there. So just this year alone, there's been 477,000 startups created in the UK, which is terrifying. They're also contributing 400 billion to the economy, which is an amazing and staggering kind of thing in terms of they're going. So when LinkedIn picked a good list to go for, then this seems like a pretty good one to be looking at. LinkedIn looked at 4 main things when they were picking out this list. They picked out employee growth, so how quickly are those organizations actually growing, job seeker interest in terms of the amount of applications and the people who are looking at the vacancies that those organizations have got, member engagement, so this is members from a LinkedIn perspective, so how frequently are their profiles being engaged with and are people searching for them on LinkedIn, and then how well are those startups actually bringing in flagship top company talent, which is quite hard to say. Evidently, LinkedIn have a top companies list, which if you're managing to steal good people from other organizations, they reward you for it, which is good. So I guess on with the list to a certain degree, and we're going to do this top of the pop style, right? So we're going to do a bit of a countdown.
Backwards countdown.
Yeah, so 25. Should we get on with what the...
Yeah, okay. Let's do it.
Right, so I feel like, who was it? Smashy and Nicey that used to do the, you're too young for this, Megan.
Yeah, I have no idea what this is.
But in 25, there was a company called Darktrace. So Darktrace are a cybersecurity company. I'm going to maybe skip over some of the ones that are non-financial services and move on to our specialisms to a certain degree. Darktrace, cybersecurity company. Well done, guys. Really good.
Congrats.
Attest in 24 was a consumer growth platform. We have in 23rd, White Hat, a career focused on apprenticeships organization, which is super cool. But in at 22 was a company called Moneybox, which we know a little bit more about.
One of our fan favorites.
Awesome company doing some really interesting things in the sort of savings space. You know, savings this year actually seems to be kind of a thing that's really sort of taking off, both in terms of fintechs and more broadly, right? We're seeing lots of interesting things in that space.
Well, yeah, and it's really quite cool because I met Charlie, the CEO of Moneybox, years ago, and he really had this idea of not just helping people make better financial decisions, but automating that process. So Moneybox is automatically rounding up your spend. So actually at Starling, when we had launched our API back in 2017 or whenever it was actually Moneybox that did the first API integration that was with the transaction API to automatically pull it in and round up that spend. But I think it's such a cool focus, not only focusing on savings, but automating that kind of healthy decision making that people are wanting to implement. So yeah, really cool to see them on there.
Yeah, the sort of passive in saving, you know, saving without you knowing you're saving. Like it's because everybody wants to do that, but not everybody takes their time to find it. So well done those guys anyway.
Well
all right, moving on. So 21, there was a company called Compeyson, which is a B2B lead generation company. 20 was Continuo. digital transformation company. At 19 was a really, I know Pet really liked this one, a company called Arrival, which made some super cool electric vans, which if you haven't checked it out, go and check out their website. That was very interesting. But landing in at 18 was Modular, who are a business payments platform. This is one of the companies who actually won part of the RBS Remedies Fund. Was it 10 or 5 million that they got, Pat? I think it was 10, wasn't it?
I think we landed on 10 because of a pair up they had with Adam. Is that right?
Well, they're in Pool C, which was 10 million. So yeah, congratulations to those guys. Congrats. Another good kind of accolade for those. I think, interestingly, a B2B player. You know, many of these above this have been, you know, almost B2C companies, but you know, an integration technology company coming into this space.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's quite cool. Not only the B2B focus, but a lot of the key themes that we're hitting on, which we'll get through in all of these, is not only fintech, but a clear focus on payments. Also, some of the things that we've seen rise to the occupation shortage list in the UK, like cybersecurity. So really hitting on the areas where we see increased efficiency, but also increased needs by the virtue of digital just kind of expanding its presence through every industry. So quite cool. Yeah.
Agree. In at 17, we had Monese. So I kind of feel like Monese are one of the older fintechs. You know, these guys have sort of been around since the beginning, really. You know, for anybody who doesn't know, Monese are aimed at more of an immigrant population, aren't they? Actually, sort of, they made a real big impact by making it a lot easier to actually gain access to an account at the very beginning, which is obviously something that people really struggle with.
Yeah, and they're doing a whole advertising initiative right now, actually around students who are studying abroad, and really targeting that. But yeah, they really have this focus on expats, on immigrants. But I think this is where we get into the part of the list where we're getting to these companies that I feel are actually quite successful, even though they're still a startup, maybe actually more in the scale up, but definitely like a high growth, innovative company, and under the criteria we have, like definitely doing some really cool stuff.
Like you say, that startup, you know, it's, you know, some of the companies in the list in totality have got nearly 1,000 people working at them, right? So, you know, startup is quite a broad category, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, I mean, you can still be a startup and have a unicorn valuation by virtue of this list. So I do think there are some startups in here which are much earlier stage, some are which, you know, 5 to 10 years old, but they still fall into this category of being relatively early stage compared to the incumbents in the ecosystem. So, but yeah, very cool stuff they're doing.
Very cool. In at 16, we had Lad Bible, which I wasn't sure still exists. Like, if anybody doesn't know Lad Bible, if you're on Facebook or you're on Instagram, you'll probably get hit with an ad every so often from some entertaining GIF or meme or something type thing. That's those guys. In at 15, we had Flagstone. So they are a cash interest rate account for high depositors, which I haven't come across so much, if I'm honest with you. Don't know if you've heard too much about them.
No, not really, actually, but it sounds pretty cool.
And the fact that they've managed to get into the top 15 with that, like flying potentially slightly under the radar, is pretty impressive.
It would be quite cool if they did something with Raisin, who's all about aggregating your savings accounts, helping you to allocate that funding. So, quite
agree.
Cool. Yeah.
All right, in at 14, we have Thought Machine. You know, these are the guys. Thought Machine, for anybody who doesn't know, I think it's like 27 ex-Google engineers coming together to build next generation core banking system. Really, really good company. Paul over there, who founded the company, doing an amazing job. I think they've got a partnership with Lloyds Banking Group. They're implementing with a couple of other organizations globally, doing amazing things.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think they have like a 5-year exclusive tie-up with Lloyds here in the UK, but I think it really shows this increased focus not only on digital or tech, but being able to really rewrite that from the ground up and doing that through strategic partnerships, and they're really nailing that. But they're here, they're in Asia, they're a pretty global company as well. So yeah.
Well, and I saw that Paul came out, I think on LinkedIn recently, actually saying, you know, his biggest mission right now is just to hoover up all of the talent in London, which, I mean, this is probably going to help with that one. So congratulations to the guys over at Thought Machine. Number 13 we had was Bud, a company I know really well, was previously one of their non-executive directors actually over at Bud. They are probably one of the companies who are taking most advantage of everything that's been happening with open banking. So congratulations to Ed and Jamie and the guys over there. I know you guys know them really well as well.
No, I've been good friends with them since 2016, and if you go back to 2016 and start talking about open banking, it wasn't really a thing yet when they started talking about open APIs. There's PSD2 in its early infancy, But really, they help to not only be thought leaders, but pioneers in the space, showing the utility of it, how it can help to connect fintechs and other tech consumer companies with the banks, and what that was. So not only have they done a good job, I think, with growing their own company, but also helping to kind of spearhead a new type of connected ecosystem within the whole financial services space. So yeah, I think it's well deserved. So congrats to both Jamie and Ed and the whole team.
I know every time I talk to Ed, he's got another thing he wants to develop on top of the product. So I like say, I think I see this going from strength to strength to strength, which is cool.
Absolutely.
All right, in at 12 we had Gate One. These guys are a digital transformation consultancy. I hadn't come across these guys, but well done, Gate One. In at 11 we have our friends over at Clearbank, which is cool. So another sort of core systems player, you know, with Thought Machine, with the Clearbank guys. We had Nick Ogden actually on FinTech Insider a couple of weeks ago. The stuff that those guys are doing is amazing. You know, the fact that there hasn't been a clearing bank for 250 years, and he just went and did it. So turns out it's going rather well. So well done him.
I remember that for a period of time, I think they were referred to as infrastructure banks. People were trying to give these sub names to challenger banks. You had neobanks, challenger banks, traditional challenger banks like Metro, and then you had infrastructure banks like Clearbank, who went to get the banking license, build a bank from scratch, but actually in order to improve B2B access throughout the ecosystem. So yeah, it's they've been doing really well, so it's cool to see them on the list.
Indeed. All right, in at number 10, so we're getting to the top 10 now, we have Curve. So Curve, for anybody who doesn't know, they are an aggregator play for credit cards. So you can pay on one card, and in the back of that, basically decide which card you actually want that transaction to go post-payment, which I always thought was such a kind of cool thing. We actually had the CEO and Mariano Belinki back when he was part of Santander Interventures on the podcast ages and ages and ages ago talking about this one. But it's a super cool product. I think I know they've struggled a little bit with the American Express relationship, kind of on and off a little bit in terms of arrears. But I still see a lot of people using those Curve cards.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Shakar Bialik, their CEO, is very visionary and very passionate about the product. Really good at hiring a team of like-minded people to help drive that forward. But the main focus being on ease of use. So thinking that people have all of these different cards, pulling them into one, being able to do the things like reverse changing the transaction. So if you spent it on one card, but you actually want to change it to another for points optimization or whatever reason, that being quite cool. But then also looking at the other things they're wanting to do across the cards with loyalty and rewards, what they're looking at doing with Amex, which, to be fair, with Amex has been a bit of a struggle, but they've been doing really well. So,
I know they've talked about in the past about potentially using it for lending as well. So actually, if you want that decision not to be, you can change the payment at all. You know, you might want to put that card on a loan, or you might want to put it on a credit card, or even just take money out of savings. And so, I mean, that I think they referred to it as time machine, didn't they? The you know, post sort thing. You know? Yeah,
reverse splitting it and then saying, actually, for this large transaction, if I can pay it over installments over a 12-month period. I think they also raised, what was it, like 50 million this year? They raised a pretty large round just quite recently.
So well done to the guys over there. Coming in at number 9, we have Tide, who Tide have just been absolutely killing it. Like, if you are opening a business account right now, you're probably going to be like narrowing it down to one of 3. I think Tide are going to be on that list. You know, the amount of customer acquisition that they've been doing here is amazing. You know, they obviously changed CEO, about 18 months ago, with George kind of stepping back, and it seems to have really worked for them. You know, like the new advertisements that are going on, the amount of customers acquisition. So I know obviously from your Starling days you worked with on the business side of things as well, but how did you guys kind of see them?
Yeah, so I saw them as taking, they had a similar vision but with a different approach. So similar to how Monzo originally started as a prepaid card, Tide didn't actually get their full banking license. They were just really focusing on the fact that it's difficult to open a business bank account. The user experience, there's still a massive gap between what the banks offer today and these small businesses. And really, if you look in that space, like a lot of small businesses feel a bit disenfranchised from the large corporate offerings that usually offer something very similar to a current account but charge for it by virtue of you being a business. So I think they're really trying to attack that space quite early on. But yeah, the difference with Starling was Starling always had this view of wanting to be the full bank account with giving the FSCS protection, kind of going to the full 9 yards in terms of competing with the large banks as well. But it's very much in that space of making it easier for businesses to manage their finances, and they're doing really well.
And obviously, I guess Tide and Clearbank actually, the relationship with, what did they get, 60 mil from the Remedies Fund collectively? You know, Clearbank and Tide sort of proposition. So again, it's an interesting one, how impactful potentially the remedies fund is going to be for this listing sort of going forwards as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, over on number 8, we have Goat Agency, which sounds like a farming thing. Apparently not. They're an influencer marketing thing. I think it's reference to greatest of all time.
This is one of those. It's not even millennial anymore. It's like the Gen Z. I heard Goat recently. No, I'm just not getting into that.
But it looks pretty cool, like influencer marketing at scale, basically. So, kind of if you've got a decent enough following on Instagram or Twitter, then these are the guys who are going to help you monetize it, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. But really, the ones that they've been trumped by in the number 7 spot, pretty impressive.
Well, so in at 7 is us at 11FS. So we're super happy about it. Like it was a real surprise to be so high up on the listing in terms of the people who are kind of around us. I think the thing that I'm kind of most proud of a little bit is I think we're the only company on the list who hasn't taken VC money, which is really good from our perspective because it means we can keep making decisions in the way that we've done and keep growing the company in the direction that we have.
Yeah, and you're now 3 years old, right? This year was your third birthday?
Third year working,
Yeah, so whenever you actually compare yourself to the other ones we'll get into within the top 7, you're probably the youngest. There's one that I won't spoil who it is. There's one I'm not quite so sure about, but I think compared to most, you're probably the youngest one.
Very true.
Yeah, very exciting.
Well, keep rising each year. We'll see where we get to. All right, in number 6, we have Formula E, which I was like, I mean, if you're going to be beaten by anybody to that 6th spot, then a Formula One company, Formula E company would be a good one to do. Amazing company. If you go and check out their website, they're building out amazing cars and actually a whole sort of community ecosystem around what they're doing as well. So looks super cool. In at 5, there is Babylon. So these are the distributing healthcare or GP appointments and distribution of drugs, not drugs in a weird way, in terms of
pharmaceuticals.
Thank you. To kind of get to people. So you can make an appointment with a GP. You can do a full consultation via Hangout via your phone, which is super cool.
It's not fintech, but I really love the space in health tech. So I'm really glad we've seen one come up into the top 5. I think there's so many efficiencies that we can bring into the healthcare space. So really exciting company.
Do you know what? I've used them a few times actually. So I've given up my GP in Norwich as to have that here, and I found it great. The only thing is working in an environment where you've got predominantly glass-based meeting rooms, it can make the consultations a bit weird for not just for me but for everybody.
Fair enough. It is very open around here.
It is. Everybody knows everything. All right, in at 4, so we have your old gaff, Starling Bank.
Yeah, Starling Bank. No, super exciting to see. For me, if they hadn't been on the list, I would have been shocked. They've just been moving from strength to strength. They're at 583 employees now, still expanding rapidly. This year, they raised another massive fund. I'm going to forget exactly how much it was. They got $100 million from the RBS Remedies Fund, raised, I want to say, another $75 million. So in terms of just moving from strength to strength with getting the banking license back in, 2017, fully launching the APIs, launching the business account, launching joint accounts, doing the full 9 yards. They're just moving from strength to strength. Really
I think, opened an office in Cardiff. Announced one yesterday in Southampton.
They just
Anne's just if property baron, if nothing else, right? Hoovering up all of those different places.
In the Southampton office, at first I was thinking strategic location if you want to have a boat, And I know the CIO John Mountain loves his boat.
Nice.
But also it actually has a really impressive university with a focus on AI there. So I think there's probably a number of strategic decisions on why they're expanding, but just growing like crazy over there.
Well, it's good to see more investment going outside of London as well, right? So actually, obviously, Anne is Welsh, so Cardiff, and I'm sure she wanted to kind of put more stuff back into the, the motherland, as it were. But really sort of spreading around where new job creation is kind of made. I know, obviously, the guys at Atom are doing a lot for, flying the flag for fintech in the north
Durham.
of England, in Durham, and Edinburgh is doing a lot as well. So it'll be interesting to see how. I mean, there's probably a consistent thing here of if most of these companies are in London, which I mean, I think probably 22 or 23 of them are probably HQ'd in London. Talent is going to be a thing that's going to dry up at some point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But also in terms of driving growth throughout the UK, I think the work that they're doing to actually expand offices in other locations to build up hubs, not only in the north in the case of Atom, but Southampton in the case of Starling and in Wales. I think that's really good for the economy as a whole because we have talent across the company or across the country that we're really not tapping into unless we start to see that expansion. So
really great. All right, in at number number 3, we have Gymshark, who I didn't know so much, but apparently like a super young guy, you said, Pet, right?
He's like 27.
27-year-old who started a gym chain company, which is amazing. So doing really well. Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats.
In at 2, we have, I mean, this is knowing who we've talked about to date. The last 2, given our focus in fintech, can probably only be a 1 of 2. But in at 2 was Revolut.
Yeah.
Doing amazing things.
Yeah, doing really cool stuff. I like seeing them on this list too because they had a bit of back and forth in terms of their media standing, should I say, in terms of like whether the articles written about them were positive or negative. But I think this really goes to show that despite some of that, they're still like seen as a very reputable company to work for. They're attracting a lot of talent. So yeah, really excited for them.
Well, and they've made some really strong hires recently, haven't they? People out of N26, some people out of Deutsche Bank, Richard Davies, who was at TSB. So it's amazing they've really, in terms of the category of like hiring top talent, they've really brought in some amazing people recently. So and this week I think they announced they've hit 7 million customers, which is an amazing thing to do. Really so congratulations to I know Chad and the guys over there will be definitely sort of super pumped about this one. Yeah,
this all goes to Chad, I'm sure.
I'm sure. And in at number 1 is Monzo.
Ooh, go Monzo.
I think unsurprising, I'd say, in terms of like the impact that they probably had. I think they're sort of the default example that I think people are using, not just here now, but globally, I'd say, in terms of the challenger bank space. Yeah. And I think the impact that they've had is pretty phenomenal. But
I actually just got a gift from a guy on my team today, Drew Graham, which is a printout on Canvas of a tweet from Tom Blomfield that's like, we have a top secret weapon that most companies don't know about. We talk to customers. It was something quite like that. I'm probably not getting it exactly right. But the reality is they do a really good job in terms of building a product, in terms of building the community. They're now scaling to the US, which is quite cool to see them start globally expand. But yeah, they've done a really good job.
They've opened a call center, so it's a call center in Vegas?
Yeah.
Which I would, like, if anything was going to attract people to your job postings, it's probably like a job advert in Vegas, I'm not going to lie. But it's, I mean, on reflections of the list, like, it's amazing to see so many fintechs. Like this list is not just financial services, but like startups across the piece. Like fintech just is the best industry to be working in right now.
Well, particularly in the UK, I think the fact is that we still have a regulator that's really supporting and inspiring the new entrants that we're seeing, enabling new companies to come to market, even with the full banking license, to really compete on equal footing with the incumbents in a way that you just don't see. So if you look at areas like Singapore, like Hong Kong, like in the US, you don't see the same type of healthy environment that's enabling fintech to thrive. So it's one of the things I actually love about the country is that we are just, we're not only leaders in the space, but we don't take it for granted and very much creating an ecosystem that continues to enable it to thrive.
Yeah, and there's a nice mix as well between, obviously Monzo, Revolut, Starling, Babbel, like B2C and B2B players in this listing. You're seeing, and actually, interestingly, if you look at maybe in the top, top 7, top 8, 9, 10, like actually community drives so much in the establishment of these brands, really. Is this the difference, do you think? Traditional companies use marketing in a very different way. The community that's built around the Starlings, the Monzos, the Revoluts is so strong, isn't it?
Yeah, well actually, so one of the reasons why Drew got that gift is we could say it till we're blue in the face, but the reality is the way that products are built today is all through building things quickly, but through close customer contact, like talking to customers, listening to customers, having that lean feedback loop. And it's only through that true engagement and really, one, caring about your customers and solving well for them first and foremost before you even kind of look at the commercial aspects of it. If you solve first for solving for your customers, then you're going to win in the market. So I think the work that they've done to truly do that enables them to build communities almost as a result. But I think it's really impressive that they're not only doing that and showing new products and new business models, but a new way of building and bringing something to market that's really influential throughout the ecosystem.
It was when we were back at Money 2020, I did an interview with Patrick Collinson, and he said exactly like that. It was like, I was like, tell us the secret. What, like you've started a £22 billion company, like what's the secret? And he was just like, listen to customers, do it, repeat. that was
Yeah.
it. You know, so it's amazing how simple these things sound when you say them out loud, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But to be fair, for an incumbent industry where for a long time you had to like perfectly spec things out before you even started building, it is quite a difference. So yeah, they're bringing something new, but quite obvious whenever you say it like that.
Yeah, it's nice to see, I guess, so many different types of industries potentially. I know there's lots of fintech in here, but I mean, there's communications, there's a little bit of consultancy coming into it, which definitely from our perspective is an industry that needs changing for sure.
Yeah.
But like you say, and we were sort of talking about earlier on, is like, given the fact that we're managing to sustain these many startups in London and the UK, that's a pretty decent sign as well.
Yeah, not only sustain them, but like they are like killing it. Like to say that they're sustaining is almost like an understatement. They're definitely thriving. So I want to say so. At least a handful of them have over a unicorn valuation. Lots of them have hundreds, if not over. I don't know if any of them have over 1,000 employees. Maybe Revolut. But really growing and thriving.
Yeah. I think Revolut and Monzo must be, I think they're sort of 800 to 900 each, aren't they? Which is amazing. But I'd say, you know, when you look at the, you know, top 5, top 4 at least, all of them are predicting to at least double their employee base in the next year, which is amazing. So, you know, the growth of these companies to date has been phenomenal, but it's not going to be sort of, you know, slowing down in any sort of way, which is great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, definitely from our perspective, we're going to be doubling at least, I think, in terms of, like, we sort of said in the thing that we put out, I think if we only do about 50% of what we think we can do next year, then it's going to be a pretty exciting year.
Yeah, and really that type of growth, once you get to that exponential point, is really impressive because it means that you have a significant enough establishment of the leadership team in place to actually onboard all of those new hires.
Yeah.
Because there comes a point where when you're hiring more people, it actually slows you down. So it kind of has to ebb and flow. So once you're hitting that rate of growth, it means you have enough key leaders that can help to onboard all of those people.
Yeah.
So it's also, I think, another really good sign of a company being successful and hiring in the talent. But I mean, obviously they are hiring in the talent because one of the key factors was their ability to draw talent from some of the best companies. So perhaps that's a
factor. Yeah. It's interesting because, like you say, when you some of these are scale ups in their in the sort of truest sense, but the fact that so many so significant companies now are able to scale through all of those hurdles because I mean we always say it's like when it was me, Jason, Simon, and Megan and Ross, things were quite simple. You know, communication was easy, and you know, like the 5 of you around a table is straightforward. When there's like hundreds of you, then communication and all of these things become such a different thing to kind of create. And actually, you know, there's been reasonably well documented sort of cultural sort of issues in various different places. Managing and mitigating all of those things for, you know, 25 big companies is pretty good going. Yeah,
because one of the key things you have to do is hire talented people, but then figure out how to empower them to do great work. And that means, I think also when you're quite young, you have a visionary team that likes to own and do things, but eventually you kind of have to let go and you have to hire people, but then give them the space. But that also has to come with a certain framework for scaling. Because to be fair, when also you have multiple office locations, just becomes a whole other challenge to make sure that you're maintaining and rippling out the culture that you've built in the hub.
Very
really
cool.
Exciting stuff.
So, I mean, this week probably super relevant for you actually as well. You've been spending some time judging at the Barclays Entrepreneur Awards this week. How was that?
Yeah, no, it was really good. So it's part of our Entrepreneurs and High Growth team, but we do something called the Barclays Entrepreneur Awards. We've been looking at actually significantly probably earlier stage and a bit smaller companies than this, but lots of cool companies like Snag that's focusing on inclusivity and around creating this new type of innovative tights for women. Companies like Zagami, which is like data visualization, iPack, which is like actually a challenger packaging company that's looking at sustainability. But just lots of cool companies around the UK. And just wanting to celebrate kind of the best and brightest people that are coming up and doing something new in their space.
Nice.
So yeah, but very much hits on the same theme of this list is that you know, the UK is actually really a hub for talent and innovation, wanting to celebrate that and continue to kind of foster it where we can.
It's going to be amazing to see who from that list ends up on this list next year potentially. So it is amazing. Like in the UK we do, and actually I guess more broadly, you know, Jason always says it's like actually, you know, 5 years ago it was really hard to start a startup. Actually, all of the evolution that we've seen from ecosystems, or I mean, in the fintech space, the regulatory environment, as you say, to sort of support it. But more broadly, I mean, WeWork didn't exist to us 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Now you're in a situation where you can hire like 3 desks and jump into place and have a business really quickly.
Absolutely.
So it kind of feels like we know we're going to be heading into a sort of a downturn from an economy perspective, but I just don't see startups, new startups coming to market slowing because not all problems have been fixed yet, for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And something that's quite cool is like companies like yours that actually didn't rely on external funding. Whenever I was looking through a lot of the companies that we're looking at for the Barclays Entrepreneur Awards, there's a lot that were similarly like self-sustained, bootstrapped, or only raised a small amount of funding and are now doing really impressive things. I think that's almost a bit of a signifier of people in the UK, though, who are willing to really invest themselves into this new idea that they're passionate about. I think also VC in the UK have a very pragmatic lens of only wanting to invest really once they can see very tangible returns on their investment. And so, it's created an opportunity to thrive, but there's also a really good entrepreneurial mindset here of people saying, that's a problem, I can solve it, and I can do it myself, and I can bootstrap the company to do it. So, yeah.
I think it's interesting that I think the VC model focuses so heavily on short-term returns. That's definitely the thing that's always sort of turned me off from taking any external investment is almost the startup mentality of creating a large enough customer base but not worrying about a business case. I also say I'm quite old-fashioned. I expect a business to make money. Like it needs to be sort of sustainable in terms of that process. But almost like there's a healthy tension between that, isn't there? Almost if you can create the model, show the scale, show the hockey stick, not just from a user acquisition, but from a revenue perspective, and then pour petrol on the flames type thing. That's when I think it kind of really works.
Absolutely, yeah. Because the reality is you do need. Sometimes it takes money to make money, and you have to have a certain amount of capital in order to grow and to hire. And it's London. If you're based here, you're probably going to be spending a pretty good chunk on real estate the larger you get. That's just reality. Even at WeWork, which is a really great place, but still you have to pay for it. So the money has to come from somewhere.
They're lovely people. They just don't give you free space.
Lovely, but they want to charge you. But no, and actually in the UK around VC funding, something I thought was really cool is there's like the Rose Review, a number of other initiatives around creating kind of equality in VC money being dispersed between both male founder-led companies and female founder-led, which has been typically, if you look just at the statistics on it, have been a bit underfunded. And so I think in the UK we're seeing a lot of kind of diversity rise up, which is quite cool as well.
Really great. All right, well, unfortunately, I think probably you and me have got to go to meetings, haven't we? So we better get going. But thank you ever so much for joining us today. Congratulations to everybody who was on the list. You should be super, super proud of everything that you've done. It's amazing to see so many really, really successfuls coming up in the UK. So well done to everybody on the list. Before we leave, where can people find out more about you, Megan?
On Twitter at Megan Caywood. That's the main place.
Very good. And as for me, you can find me on @DavidBreer over on Twitter. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you do want more insights like this, please head over to FinTech Insider Podcast over on iTunes or any podcast provider that you really want to. If you want any topic discussed on air, well, just hit us up over on @FinTech Insider on Twitter and suggest a topic over there. See you guys next week.
See ya.
Bye.